You found the skeleton. How would you tell people that this is you personally? How would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
All right, welcome to Dapper Reacts number.
Oh, that was fast.
What is it? 117. Was it fast?
Yeah, you said the count. You said how many minutes or seconds. You said how many seconds, and then when you started, I was like, oh my god, we're starting. So
yeah.
All
right,
it was fast.
Well, first couple things. We've got 10 Dapper Dinosaur memberships were gifted by Ben Extra Thick Tunicate, who also sent a membership milestone chat. Ben has been a member for 24 months and is at the annual level and says, "All hail Dapper," with the tetrapod emoji, disgusting pelagic tunicate emoji that I should have replaced. I just realized that now. I should have replaced that with a Darwin head. But then also a Godzilla, a Mothra, a Ghidorah, a Deal With It Darwin, a Dapper Dinosaur, a Kent, a Vishanti, a Murphy, a Mach Clot, a Citation Needed, and Get Bent, which is almost all of the...
Am I an emoji?
You might be our next emoji. Would you like to be our next emoji?
You are not.
I would like to be your next emoji.
Right, well, I think we need about
You
70 members.
Get that membership up then.
Yeah, I think we need about 70 members to make that happen. But then also Sapphire Magical Wolf Paws Light has also gifted a Dapper Dinosaur membership, which means we have 11 drinks to take. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start
69, dude.
Yeah, I guess maybe it is now at 69. Although YouTube likes to lie to me, so for all I know, it's like 569. So, you know.
So YouTube is a liar. That's
sometimes
true. No, I am. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Also, I managed to dig one of my claws into my other hand now. Like, just not paying attention. Turns out they're sharp claws, and they can even dig into my own skin, which is not fun. So.
Meat in the chat, Meat Permits Tad says, Kip's emoji is just the F word.
Just the F word.
I think I might get in trouble if I did that.
Guys, I don't know what happened. Okay, I do know what happened, but I'm still at a loss that it happened and that I have this reputation, well earned as it may be, for running around.
I can't believe people remember me for things that I do.
I don't know. I know, but
okay.
I don't know.
Atkinson says you have dick emojis. No, technically I have eggplant emojis, and there's a difference. The fact that you all use them as dick emojis and that I call them dick emojis is entirely coincidental. But that bag labeled AIG is in fact a bag of aubergines, if you will.
I'm with Cognitive Terrification, who says that Kip's emoji should just be the Stoyer jar.
Put a big jar with the letter S in it.
Listen, I would be sorry, less excited about that than I would be about the Mudkip. So
I mean, well, you are
get those memberships.
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
And we do have the Mudkip. Right.
Come on,
the Mudkip is already a piece of art that I could probably easily repurpose. Yeah, into an emoji. Yeah. I mean, I'd cut out the body because
you've done it essentially.
Yeah, basically. Well, what I would do is I would cut out.
Well, not you, but
right. But I would cut out the body.
Done it for you.
I cut out the body because if the whole thing becomes an emoji, it's hard to read all of that. It'll just become sort of a bluish, whitish blur. But with just the head, I think we could make that work. Yeah. Well, hey, if we get like 69 or 70 or whatever emojis here, then
memberships.
Yeah. Where? Okay. Oh, it was hiding. Sorry, I was looking for where my drink counter thing was because I opened up the drink counter thing, but Windows was like, we're gonna hide it. And it was like up in some weird little corner, like mostly off the screen. So, tell you what, Kip, why don't you tell us how you doing, and then I'll take 11 drinks.
I'm doing well. Last night, Ghost dropped 2 new songs, which is awesome. And the new album is coming in 12 days, which is awesome. And this last week, I got to talk to Aaron Thompson, the only professor of art fraud in America, which was
Nice.
also great. So it was cool. I think it was I think it was a great stream. Vish, it was a great stream, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, we got a couple more things to read here.
yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm done.
Oh, okay. Roshina, hashtag upset color, for $1.99 says, bagels are merely a cream cheese delivery vehicle. I mean, okay, but sometimes you can put fish on them. Sometimes you can put butter on them.
I have butter on mine right now.
Yeah, see? So I think they're definitely a delivery vehicle. I don't think I would eat just
Non-dairy butter, but
a... Well, yeah. I don't think I would eat just a bagel.
I particularly like just butter on my French toast bagels, which are a thing that I like to
Nice.
get from my local grocery store. So yeah.
You know what I just realized? I kind of want to make a fish confit with butter as the fat. Spread that on a bagel.
Oh.
Like maybe just get some salmon, cut it up small so that it can spread easily, and then just slow cook it in a bit of butter until it's cooked through. Let that recool, and then spread that on a hot bagel so that the butter melts in, and then the salmon, the confit is just on the top, and just eat that.
Yeah. It's expensive, but it's just about time to buy a salmon and put it on the barbecue.
Well, no, you don't. If you're making a salmon confit, you're not going to toss it on the barbecue.
No, but I'm not. I'm
Oh, okay.
I'm
yeah, well,
I'm grilling my.
I mean, look, grilled salmon is pretty
thank
great,
you.
but like a salmon confit on a bagel, that sounds really good. Come on.
That's
Yes,
true. I mean,
see,
it really
Fish
does.
is with me on this
But
one.
It also just makes me think about grilling salmon. So
I mean, that's fair, and you can get like some.
Love grilling salmon.
What I really like is getting it like sealed up with some herbs and some lemon and whatnot in a little tin foil, and then it just soaks up all those flavors. Which, by the way, okay, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna set a super chat goal, right? And this super chat goal is going to be, if we meet it, then Vish and Kip and I are gonna have a stream. We'll negotiate whether it's a replacement for a Dapper Reacts or whether we do it on an off day or something. But it's going to be about food stuff. It's going to be like, hey, what are you making for like your next holiday meal? Or what's an interesting food experiment like salmon confit on a bagel or something? Here's what we're going to do. If we can get 30 super chats in the next, call it 2 hours, we will do a food stream where that's all we do. We don't talk about any kind of like creationism, unless, just as a joke or something. We don't have to read a book. We don't have to watch a creationist YouTube video. We don't have to debate about, like, whether or not the original reading of Psalm 22 is still unrecoverable, or whether or not Vishanti's right. We don't have to do any of that stuff. Instead, we'll talk about various ways to cook delicious food. All right, we got a few more...
I was just gonna say, it'll give me a chance to go on and on about my my barbecue tenderloin linguine Alfredo that I have perfected.
All right, we've got a few more things to read here. Nether 6 biblical accurate tunicate, who is at the tetrapod level, says, AIG is a bag of dicks, deal with it, Darwin. And so I will take a drink. Thank you very much. Let's see, Silu,
that's pretty great,
who's been a member for 26 months and is at the tetrapod level, says, horizontal mudkip emoji with Godzilla emoji, and we'll take a drink for that. Maybe. It's possible. We got Jillian... Oh, drink for Mothra. Mothra just came by. Thanks, Mothra. Jillian Channel Social Secretary Wren, who's been a member for 24 months and is at the Amniote level, says, we are apparently talking about having a lot of Dapperino meetups over the summer. talk to people in your area. And I'm missing some of this because my stupid window is small. Talk to people in your area on the Discord. I mean, yeah, look, I think it's a great idea for, people who could, look, let me back up and say this a better way. I like that I have established a community where people can come in, make new friends, build out that support network, and also, even in cases where someone has been unable to maintain whatever membership or patronage was getting them into the Discord server, we've had instances where people have banded together and said, okay, well, we're going to get this person a gifted membership or whatever, because we don't want to lose them from the server after the grace period. And so I really appreciate the degree to which, even when I'm not directly involved, the community around that Discord server has become its own little, like, actual community where people help each other and make friends and hang out. And so I really appreciate that. Pibble half dog, half canine for $10 says, Hail Daps, I've been enjoying a bunch of these self-published lit RPG adventure novels you can find free on Kindle. They're not all gems, but you can find some real diamonds if you're willing to dig. Yeah, do you guys know about lit RPGs?
I don't know. I look at me.
Okay, fair.
I'm right. Yeah.
Fish, do you know about the lit RPG?
I don't understand a single word that just came out of your mouth.
No.
So lit RPG is basically you're writing a story, but the story itself is using the tropes of TTRPGs in order to explain what's happening. And so it'll actually be a story in which someone does something like, oh, and they got a really good attack roll in, and it dealt like 14 damage to the orc warrior, but it's still a novel. And the biggest one I think is Dungeon Delver, or what is it? I can't remember the name of it now. But there's a series of novels like this, and like it's a fairly new literary genre where you just explicitly in the text explain the happenings in the story using the language of TTRPGs, and often they'll have like their own little systems for things like spell casting or magic items or something. So if you're super into TTRPGs and or fantasy, check out some lit RPG stuff. The lit is short for literature, not for like, oh wow, that's lit. That's where that comes from. Dutchman that never saw snow tunic for $2 says, Dapper, I just fixed my diet, now this with the Mothra. I'm sorry. Suddenly, it's like, now Dapper's talking about salmon confit. Like, yeah.
Some things can't be helped, guys.
You know, salmon confit might end up being part of my my Easter. Because, I mean, I'm going to have a fun fancy meal for Easter.
Good choice.
And I asked Benton, he was like, I don't know, we'll get a ham. I'm like, okay, but that's kind of boring.
Boring?
Yeah. Like, last year we had, like, slow-cooked lamb tacos with onions and, like, Mexican cheese on, like, freshly cooked tortillas as, like, Easter. And now it's like, get a ham. Like, we could. But instead, I might do something else. Metageeky Platypus Warlock says, speaking of food, I'm making steamed mussels with habanero citrus broth. Interesting. Sorry. Early B-Day special meal. Better than eating AIG Parmesan. Ooh, gross. We'll take a drink, though. That does sound pretty good. I can't remember the last time I had mussels at all. Of course, I live in Arizona, so like I don't get a lot of seafood. So... Meat Permits Tad for $5 says, McToon Voice, where are the triplets, Bodie? AIG is a saddlebag of schlongs with a Mothra. Thank you very much. We'll take a drink for that. And then Team O&B Formula 1 Dog Racing for $2 says, do not negotiate with terrorists with an ash in there. Fund them F-bomb fund. And that actually could be a way to show that the super chat or whatever is for the F-bomb fund, as you just put in the Kip swear jar emoji. All right, so
we don't have that yet, though.
Not yet, but I believe that we can get there. I believe in us. So don't let me down, everybody.
I really don't want it to be a swear jar, guys. I really don't.
Well, then maybe it can be the Kip, the mud Kip face. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So let's dive into this. Who wants to read first?
I mean, I will
Okay.
if there are no volunteers because I'm starved for attention. But
Fair enough.
and that's why I'm here. A Samson Hercules connection. By the way, this. I mean, maybe we should extend Bodie a little bit of credit for recognizing that this is actually a thing. Nothing. Can't even extend him a little.
He
No.
shall receive
Bitch says no.
nothing.
Oh, I
Nothing.
might
For the
have
apologist,
missed-
nothing.
I did miss a membership chat. I'm sorry. Rusty Longshanks, who's been a member for 18 months and is at the amulet level, said, "Fish and chips with Vish and Kip." Yeah, that would be a good name for it.
That's pretty great, eh?
Yeah.
I did see that one. But contrary to popular belief, Moby Dick's fish and chips on the strip in White Rock is not the best place to get fish and chips. It's actually the Sandpiper Pub, located just 2 blocks down from that, closest to the Peace Arch border crossing. I used to live actually just up the road from the Sandpiper, and it was honestly one of the happiest times of my life. I wonder why. So anyways,
I actually was having an idea of making some fish and chips with some beer batter, but then drizzling that with some hot honey, like some spice, like some spicy pepper infused honey.
Yeah,
just a little bit, and then you still get like the lemon squeeze and the tartar sauce and whatnot.
You know, the last thing I did with beer batter, you know what it was?
I don't.
Tuna.
Nice. Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
See, this
Mahi tuna.
This is a preview of what might happen if we get to those 30 super chats.
I'm sorry.
Right.
I am getting way ahead of myself here. All right, Samson and Hercules, guys. In some cases, there was transference that has been made obvious by commentators and researchers. Has been made obvious. Okay.
Okay.
Do you have something to say?
No, I was just agreeing with you.
All right. Yeah. Okay. The most glaring example of this is the Greek. He calls it the Greek account of Samson.
I'm going to drink for that. That's drink. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, boy.
Starting off strong.
Wow. Here we go. Why does it... The mythos of Hercules parallels the life of Samson.
That is not what the word mythos means, but okay.
No, it's not.
Jeez, Bodie.
Bodie could just say the myth of Hercules, because that's what he's talking about.
Right. And that would be reasonably accurate. It's more of a legend, but yeah, you could say myth. It's not horrible. Yes. It's better than mythos.
No, it's fine. Samson, a heroic judge who lived before the kings of Israel. Parallels, okay. Biblical commentator Adam Clarke researched the subject of Hercules and the connection to Samson. He wrote in summary of extended comments. I mean, I guess it's not technically incorrect, but it's weird.
It's weird. Yeah, I would rather say like he summarized his extended comments
like
thusly
this,
or like this
as
or something.
Follows.
Yeah, as follows.
Right. So who is Adam Clarke? I
not
don't
a clue.
know
Not
who
a
Adam
clue.
Clarke is.
So look, I'm not really familiar with like classicist scholarship. When I took my intro to philosophy course and we were reading Plato, I had a hard copy with the Greek in it. And that's about as close as I ever came to being a classical scholar. So like, and but even then,
Dapper, like he says here he's a biblical commentator.
Oh, well, I'm also.
So, look, I'm a biblical commentator.
To be fair, I guess technically I am too.
I guess that's fair. Yeah.
It's one of those things. Like some researchers.
So when I see biblical commentator, I guess I just assume at the outset, maybe I'm wrong, but I just assume that a biblical commentator is someone who's written a biblical, like a commentary. So but maybe that's just me. It could just be me, guys.
Well, maybe it is, but it could also be someone whose biblical commentary does not have wide circulation out of very niche groups. Like, that's a thing, right?
So,
You get super niche
kind of
literature.
like praise I am could be
Yeah.
a biblical comment. Sure, okay.
I mean, look,
Yeah.
if you think about it, right? There is a whole host
Mhm.
of like books, including things like kids' books, all dedicated to the niche of flat earthers. You can find rap music for flat earthers. You can find children's books to indoctrinate your kids into flat earth. You can find so-called nonfiction for flat earthers. They have their own little entertainment niche. I'm pretty sure that the same thing is true. Actually, I know it's true for Christianity broadly, but that usually just means specifically evangelical Protestant Christianity, right? Where we get like, we're going to watch Christian TV, and there's actually like several Christian-specific streaming services that will help you with this. There are Christian TV channels. There are Christian bands. There's a whole cottage industry. And I'm sure that within that, there's its own fringe, right? Sort of like the Pareto distribution. You know, it's not super accurate, but it's this general rule of thumb that, generally speaking, about 80% of whatever happens is actually accounted for by 20%. Similarly, within any fringe, there's going to be like a tiny little 10% of that fringe that's going to be on the fringe of that. And it is possible that within the tiny fringe of young earth creationist Christianity, there is a tiny fringe within that where this guy is popular. Got a couple of things to read here. Demon Trigger for $5 says, "Hail Mercury, one of the Greek gods. May he bless Samson always." Well, Samson wasn't very fast, was he? Because that's Mercury's thing. It's just being super fast.
I don't think so.
Yeah, maybe that would be a better story. Like if Samson had speedster powers in addition to the super strength, that'd be pretty cool.
Well, that's OP.
I mean, is it more OP than just Superman? People don't seem to care about that.
I mean, Superman also got to do speedster stuff.
Exactly.
Didn't he, like, punch the Flash out of his, like, fast thing?
I don't know specifically, but, like, I do know that Superman goes super fast.
You can clearly tell that I'm a big DC fan that knows exactly what they're talking about.
Hey, it's alright. You can be a Marvel person. It's fine.
And I am.
Yeah, look, here's the thing, right? People like what they like, and that's okay. If you like DC more than Marvel, good. If you like Marvel more than DC, I'm okay with that. If you don't care about either, if you're like, I prefer Dark Horse comics, great!
Ooh.
The most recent comics I've read were from Boom Studios. Because they were the Power Ranger comics, and they were surprisingly good. I was expecting them to just be kind of trash, but they're actually better than a lot of the seasons of Power Rangers.
Boom Studios also published the Empty Man comics, on which the movie is just only that. It's only a name based. But one of the rare instances where the fact that they only named it the same is actually good.
Okay. I mean,
I was a big fan of Cerberus the Aardvark comics when I was in high school.
Nice. I'm sorry. Roshina, hashtag upset Keller.
He was the Pope, you know.
I didn't. But Roshina, hashtag upset Keller, who I believe has never been Pope, but I'm not sure, says for $4.99, maybe Mythos was an autocomplete error in Bodie's blog software that he wrote this treatise in. I mean, that is actually, it does bring up a question, like, what software does Bodie use? I don't know. Maybe. All right. Let's read this summary of extended comments.
Yes, let's do that. The conformity between these adventures of Samson and Hercules is self-evident and proves beyond a doubt that the fable of the one was composed from the history of the other.
Does it? Because it seems to me like they could also both just share a common root myth that they both developed from. That also seems plausible.
Nah. Their Bible one has to be the real true one.
Oh, right, I forgot.
Everyone copies.
I'm starting to figure out how this works, Dapper.
Okay.
Everything that any ancient person ever wrote was based in something in some way that actually happened.
And that was recorded in the Bible.
Ancient aliens theorists propose.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Eckendod has.
Yes.
I think Eckendod has cracked the case here. Adam Clark is an early 19th century Methodist pastor. His commentary is free. That's why Bodie is citing it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yes.
That checks out to an incredible degree.
Yeah. Thank you, Eckendod. And yes, by the way, I did see your message to me on academia. Thank you. All right. The remark of Herodotus respecting the impossibility of this last adventure, according to the Greek tradition, and the folly of attributing it to the Egyptians, serves to confirm the truth of its having been borrowed and of its being but a disfigured copy whose original must be sought for elsewhere.
I'm sorry, so if the story about a demigod has something that Herodotus was like, I don't know, that means that that's not the original story? What? What is the logic here?
Logic? You think they're using logic?
No, I shouldn't have even asked, I guess. That's quite the take, though. I mean, look, maybe this guy makes a much better case in his extended arguments, but I don't have those right now. All I have is what Bodie has decided is the distillation that I should see of this. And it makes zero sense.
You know, I've got to hand it to Tolixon in the chat, who says, so the existence of Deadpool and Deathstroke prove that one of them is real? Well,
one of them.
Yep.
One of them is real. Yes. It's Deadpool.
Clearly, it's Deadpool.
Yeah, we all know that.
Okay. In fact, it appears that Samson, judge of the Israelites, particularly mentioned in the Book of Judges and by Josephus, Antiquities. He's got a weird. That's a okay. So that's
book 5.
That's right. He's using the Latin. It's book 5.
Yeah.
Chapter 10, I think. Yeah.
Is
probably the original.
Well, actually, yeah, it is chapter. I thought maybe the C was 100. Never mind. Yeah, it is chapter 10.
No, it's not. It's not.
Yeah, it's book 5, chapter 10.
Yeah. Mentioned by Josephus, is the original and essential Hercules of fable. And although the poets have united some particulars drawn from Moses and Joshua, and have added their own inventions, yet the most capital and considerable belong to Samson, and are distinguished by characteristics so peculiar to him as render him easily discernible throughout the whole. Now, before you guys say anything, I just want to I want to pose this question: how much do you think that Bodie looked at this, typical 19th century overly pretentious run-on sentence and thought that he should cite this source because this is how scholars talk?
Oh, yeah, he's definitely very impressed by this. Because, look, one of the things you can tell is that Bodie really, really desperately wants this text to be taken as a work of academic rigor. And one of the biggest ways that he does that is by providing lots of citations, which is good, but also he often double cites, which is weird. He also incorrectly cites himself. Yeah, he cites himself.
Not,
he incorrectly cites.
Peer-reviewed or published anything. It's just like his trade books.
Yeah,
or his blog posts.
He's also using like what he thinks of as like flowery, fancy prose, except that he often gets it wrong. And so what this comes across as is like a pretentious high schooler who's like read a few scholarly books and is like mimicking this style, but like you're in high school. You haven't read enough of these works. You don't know enough about like style guides or how to properly cite things. And so you just kind of screw it up. It's also sort of like if you told like ChatGPT, hey ChatGPT, just make up a scholarly work about the Tower of Babel that says that it's real. It also kind of reads like that.
And ChatGPT will do that for you.
Oh, it will. It just turns out
it'll also hallucinate entire legal cases and legal precedents that don't actually exist.
Yes.
But hey, people ask it stuff like it's the freaking Oracle at Delphi, so... I'm serious. I can't take people seriously when they're like, I'm going to ask ChatGPT. Yes, consult the Oracle. That's exactly what I'm going to start saying to people, because that's how they treat it.
I saw someone who had as a video, I convinced ChatGPT that God is real and Jesus is the Savior. Right. And I was like, okay, good.
All right, man.
If you try hard enough, you can get ChatGPT to agree to almost anything. Yeah. Roshina hashtag upset Keller for $4.99 says, maybe Mythos. Oh, no, I already read that one. But instead, Roshina hashtag upset Keller has for $4.99 sent another one. Says, who is Josephus? Bodie, you can't just mention someone's name without introducing them first. Yes, this is Flavius Josephus, the 1st century Jewish historian and famous author of Antiquity of the Jews.
Yes, but let's listen. I guess I'm just feeling ultra charitable this morning, but let's be fair here. Bodie is citing Adam Clark, who, maybe didn't feel it necessary to let his audience know as helpfully as Bodie does who Josephus is, right?
Unfortunately, the audience of Mr. What was it, Clark?
Yeah, I believe it's Clark.
Yeah, they're just not going to be as well informed about Josephus. Well, let's check.
No,
13. Yeah, not. Adam Clark.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Sacredtext.com. There we go.
I mean, look, I'm not going to knock Bodie for where he gets the text that he's citing, like in particular, instead of like a library or something, whatever.
Yeah.
Sure. So we have sorry.
Nope, go ahead.
Here we have a couple more super chats. Matai Milosevic for $9.99 says, auditory pareidolia and inability to conceive of stories, weekly power hour. Inability to conceive of Store's weekly power hour, powered by Flavius Josephus, the 1st century Jewish historian, author of the Antiquity of the Jews. Yes. It's the thing that really bugs me is like, Bodie, you could have sent this manuscript to me and paid me not that much money, and I would have edited it for you. And like, I'm not like a professional book editor, but it would have been a lot better. Like, you could have done this for a very low price compared to what you normally would see for these kind of services. I would have done it for you. I don't care. One of the things I wish for creationists is that they do better. There are ways to be better at creationism than creationists generally are. And I actually had a whole live stream on Dan Stern Cardinal's channel, Creation Myths. And I was there, I believe Jackson Wheat was there, I think Erica was there, Guts Gibbon, Richard Grayson was there. And we all gave like areas where you could do creationism better than creationists do by just tweaking a few things, right? And like creationists, there's a lot of ways you could at least have an easier time getting your foot in the door, right? One of them is stop doing this. Stop writing books that have not ever been like gone over by an editor at all. This reads like the rough draft of like a college freshman. This is not okay. Okay, maybe the first draft, maybe not the rough draft. But then again, I've been known to submit rough drafts and still get A's on them in undergrad. It's not that hard to do.
Rough drafts are on a considerably different level than this, though. Let's be real.
Mine aren't, though. That's the thing. I think in like essay format, so it doesn't matter for me. As long as I check the spelling.
That's what I was just saying. That is confirming what I just said.
I thought you were
rough
saying
drafts.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Are on a completely different level than their finished freaking product.
It's true, yeah. I could write a rough draft that's better than it. I couldn't write an outline better than this, to be fair. My outline would be worse than that.
I don't like writing outlines. I just think the thoughts. I don't.
If I had to write something,
and then rethink.
If I had to write something this long, I would do an outline. I don't normally do outlines if the paper is less than like 10 or so pages. But once it gets into like that 15, 20, 100 page area, yeah, I did I'll do an outline. Anyway,
my outlines end up literally just being section headings, I think.
Yeah,
that's basically what ends up. Like, but the thing is, though, it's important to know what section you want first and second and third, and how they're supposed to support the argument.
Right.
And that's,
but I know some people who like put together some pretty elaborate outlines.
I don't do that.
for things, right? Like I think my outlines usually are never more than 3 points for like a large paper.
If
But
it's a
anyways.
particularly complex topic, I might have a few outline sections that are actually just blocks of paragraphs rather than entire sections. That's about as detailed as I'll get in an outline. Is there might be a few points below section heading there to like make sure you have a paragraph for this and this.
Hey, can I just
So
mention
before
here
y'all start going off
Oh,
on
sorry.
another set of tangents, what I was going to
Yeah,
say
yeah.
like 5 minutes ago while we were crapping all over
Sorry,
ChatGPT,
Mhm.
which I will do
Deservedly so.
repeatedly,
at every
is
opportunity.
there's
Thank
this
you.
post that went around yesterday that I couldn't stop laughing at, and it's like this person, they said, it really is crazy how quickly people were willing to just let ChatGPT do everything for them. I've never even tried it, brother. I don't even know if it's a website you go to or what. I don't know where ChatGPT actually lives because I can decide my own grocery list. And then their follow-up is, I wisely turned off the notes on this when it was at 700 only, but oh my god, stop telling me what you, quote, just use it for in the notes. Shut the F up, shut the F up. I am not a Catholic priest. I do not absolve you. Write your own emails.
Metageeky Platypus Warlock for $5 says, "Thank you, Vish. Sham GPT loves to hallucinate publications, library archives, books, etc.
Yep.
Makes this librarian angrier than Godzilla. I mean, we'll take a drink for that Godzilla." Yeah, look, the thing is,
Like,
ChatGPT...
I know it's old news, but there was this YouTuber who purported to be hunting an abuser of children, and when pressed that he wasn't providing evidence for his extremely problematic allegations, he claimed that his lawyer told him that testimony alone was enough to take something to court. And when further pressed, because that's not true, he goes, ChatGPT understands the legal system.
Was his lawyer ChatGPT?
Oh no. Oh no.
ChatGPT understands the legal system.
So here's the thing, right? ChatGPT is designed to give answers to questions and responses to prompts that sound reasonable to the average guy.
Mm-hmm.
But what that means is it does not care if it's true, it doesn't care if it's accurate, and it doesn't care if it would pass with an expert looking. And you don't even have to be like some kind of fancy academic. If you just know more than the average guy about something, it'll get it wrong, even if that thing could have been in its training data. And one example that I gave was...
The thing is it's not thinking. It's just predictive text.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit more complex, but it does ultimately come down to a similar idea, right? And it also has really a lot of trouble learning. In fact, if you don't always prompt it to reference previous posts, it won't even always do that. Because, I mean, I'll admit, when ChatGPT came out, at first I was like, I'm going to see what the deal is here. And so I used it on the free version a few times to just, like, poke at it and see what it's going to do. And yeah, it's very easy to get it into an area where you know enough to know that it's just talking nonsense, but average people wouldn't. And one thing that I did with it was just like, hey, I wonder if it knows that if it actually knows about, like, say, the Power Rangers, because I know a fair bit about that. We watch them after the shows. And so I just asked, like, hey, has there ever been a Jewish Power Ranger? The answer to which is yes, by the way. Right? Bridge, the SPD Green Ranger, is in fact Jewish. He mentions it in one episode. And ChatGPT correctly says Power Rangers usually doesn't focus on the religious identity of the Rangers. And so, no, none of them have been explicitly Jewish, which means the first part's right, and that's what you would get if you asked the average guy. But it's not actually true. There is, in fact, an episode where Bridge mentions that he doesn't get Christmas presents because he's Jewish, but it might make a cool Hanukkah present. And they're talking about a motorbike.
Oh God, I'm sorry. Hads in the chat says ChatGPT equals shut GPT.
It's true, yeah. Which is French for cat I farted.
Yeah.
So I wanted to point out, this is a little bit further back in the chat. Chuck KV, who is rapidly learning the Hebrew language.
Nice.
As we speak. Pointed out that Joseph Smith used Clark's commentary in the Book of Mormon and in his Bible translation.
You think Bodie would be excited to know that he's tangentially related to Mormonism?
Yeah.
Like that he's citing the same guys that the guy who invented Mormonism.
I
Excited? Do you
bet
think he would like that? Because I guarantee you that he'd be like, Mormonism's not Christianity, it's cult.
Speaking of Hebrew, though,
Dapper,
do you know
you're on a first name basis with Bodie. You should email him.
Am I?
And tell him.
I don't think Bodie knows
you?
I exist.
Shouldn't you be?
No. Why would I want that?
Okay.
So, by the way, though, speaking of Joseph Smith and Hebrew, Joseph Smith did actually study Hebrew for a little while.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah.
You know what he didn't study?
Reformed Egyptian.
Reformed Egyptian,
That's right.
I bet.
Yeah. I knew where that was going. Or
any Egyptian.
Any Egyptian, yeah.
To be fair, it would have been impossible for him to actually study Egyptian at the time and place that he was living.
That's fair.
Which would have been a fantastic way to support the veracity of the Book of Mormon if the translations were correct, which they were very much not.
And also, to be fair, he did actually go out of his way to try to find a way to actually study Hebrew. And it's hard to say just how accurate this is, but there are reports that he was a pretty good student at it. So, like,
I think he also actually handed over the papyrus piece from the Book of the Dead that they had to an actual Egyptologist. No?
Kind of. So what happened ultimately...
Okay.
So he bought this from a guy who's... We're going into a Book of Abraham tangent for some reason, apparently, now.
Sorry.
So Joseph Smith...
It's not my fault.
...was in town when a traveling exhibitor of Egyptian antiquities was traveling through. And this guy was falling on rocky times, and so he was looking to mostly offload his Egyptian artifacts and get out of the business of just being like basically a traveling museum exhibit of ancient Egyptian artifacts that at the time no one could translate who wasn't in France, because while this was
Biondi or Bruce Farini,
this was just beyond the time frame when the first people in France had figured out the most basic bits about how to translate hieroglyphics. So no one in North America had any clue how to do any of this. But Joseph Smith already had a reputation for being a translator of ancient texts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this guy basically thought that he had a pretty good, decent customer. And it turns out he did have a pretty decent customer. Joseph Smith paid what at the time was a pretty reasonable amount for it. And he made this whole big thing where he went through, he produced an Egyptian grammar that was a dictionary/grammar composed of his and his scribe's somewhat sloppy copying of the already cursive hieroglyphics on the Joseph Smith papyri. He went through and talked about how, like, oh, this character means this and it has this reading. And you can actually find some letters to the editors in local newspapers where people who were relatively prominent in the early Mormon church were writing little bits like, if I were Egyptian, I would say, and then some just absolute gibberish that comes out of the Joseph Smith Egyptian grammar. So that's a thing that happened. But then eventually, he's done with this translation project, and this is toward the end of his career as a prophet, which, ends in him being shot during a break-in at a prison, I guess, where he had already been handed a gun. A gun had been smuggled in for him because they knew that there was likely to be some kind of riot from the townsfolk who wanted to kill him, which there was. So there was a gunfight at the jail, and he died. And so then his wife, his first wife, Emma Hale Smith, inherited most of his stuff, and that included the Joseph Smith papyri. It's not clear exactly what happened after that, but they seem to have been sold to a museum, which then eventually sent them on to the Chicago Museum, where they were thought to have been destroyed in a fire. But later on, someone was searching through their archives for unrelated stuff and happened to come across these papyri and noticed, like, hey, this looks almost identical to the facsimiles that you find of the Joseph Smith papyri at the beginning of the Book of Abraham in the Pearl of Great Price. Or is it in the Doctrine of Whichever.
No, it's in the Pearl of Great Price.
Okay, there you go. And interestingly, there were lacunae in the papyri exactly where the depictions in the facsimile deviated the most from standard Egyptological, like, art conventions, right? Which is like, oh, So these are areas where Joseph Smith just got to be creative and fill in things to fit with the narrative of the Book of Abraham. And it's just a very ordinary set of funerary texts for like basically a government middle manager type named Hor, who was some Egyptian guy. And that's all
Bummer
it is.
Of a name too.
I mean, it is now in English, but he wasn't speaking English. I'm sure he was fine with his name throughout his whole life. Okay. So that is the abbreviated version of the story of the Joseph Smith Papyri and the Book of Abraham. I don't know why we went on such a long thing, but also I'm seeing.
Shall I continue reading?
Not quite, because we have a few more things to read. Plus, I have to say, I see 91 people viewing us here, but only 42 of them have hit like, which means, unfortunately, once again, I like less than half of you, half as well as you deserve. So hit that like button. All right. Meat Permits Tad for $5 says, imagine how much water it took to convince ChatGPT to become Christian for one session. Probably enough to solve a few problems. Yeah, geez. Okay, that is one thing. When I was, poking around with ChatGPT, I did not realize just how much power it was taking up. And, that is one of those things. Like, it is possible some of these people just don't actually understand the degree of waste that goes into just tiny little conversations with ChatGPT.
I'm sure
absurd.
of it, yeah. I'm sure.
Well, they can't see it, so it doesn't really exist. Like, it's just, okay, but, I mean, I'm only using my one query for something and not realizing that that's what everyone says. Everyone is saying, well, it's just my one little query.
And your one little query is still probably using up, like, 3 gallons of water.
Well, yeah, like, it's 1 bottle of water per ChatGPT query.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous.
Crazy.
And
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
The thing is, after I heard of how much power it was taking, I have done jobs in data centers. Like, I have an idea of how data centers operate, how much cooling they need, and stuff like that. I also happen to know that data centers have a tendency to be built not for their environmental impact, but they tend to be built based on things like tax regimes, which means that places like Phoenix and middle of nowhere New Mexico, places that don't have an overabundance of water or ability to cool things, that tends to be where a lot of data centers end up. So it's pretty bad. Let's see. Claude Simeon said, first we need to get more things. Wayne Yu became a new member at the tetrapod level. Thank you very much, Wayne Yu. Goop23 for $5 says, the thing is, there are a lot of things like emails that I've struggled to write, but I just ask my friends and family to help. Yeah, friends and family are a great way to help. Also, there are non-AI driven options for like style analysis that aren't going to consume a small ocean worth of water to tell you that your email could be more formal. Claude Simeon for $5 says, I'm surprised it can provide accurate quotes like for lawsuits instead of hallucinating them. I'm surprised it can't provide accurate quotes.
Sometimes
that's the thing. Sometimes it can. But the problem is you never know which one's which. There should be a switch for use real sources, but that's the problem. Fundamentally, the way it works,
what it was supposed to do.
Yeah, but fundamentally, the way it ended up working, it cannot distinguish between real sources and not. That's why you get things like the Google AI in your AI results will say things like, "Yeah, doctors recommend that you smoke between 1 and 2 cigarettes a day while pregnant," and then the source will be like some guy on Reddit who is writing a joke post, but AI can't tell if it's a joke, and so it sees a source that it has used in the past accurately, because there is good information on Reddit if you know where to get it. And it's like, well, Reddit sometimes has good medical information. I guess this post that says you should definitely smoke between 1 and 2 cigarettes a day while you're pregnant is good advice.
But I mean, also, it's a language model, which, I'm not going to change my mind on this one, and I'm not going to start dunking on it. It is literally just predictive text, but a little fancier. It's just scraping a bunch of words from the internet and predicting what it, quote, thinks the right answer would be. It's not thinking.
Buy and Finish Journey. Oh, sorry. Buy and Finish Journey for member for 25 months and is at the annual level. Says, Hail Nero, Hail Daps, Kip, and Vish, and Hail Whore. Yes. In fact, specifically, I believe that the Facsimile 1 papyrus was the breathing permit, which is one of the funerary texts that's involved with the opening of the mouth ceremony, where there's a little tool that's inserted into the mouth that opens it, and that's where your spirit comes in and out. It also allows you to do things like eat and drink in the afterlife. There were also opening of the mouth ceremonies that were done for cultic idols, So, like, you go into the temple of Hathor or Osiris or whatever, and you'd hold the same instrument that was used in funerary rites up to the mouth of the statue of the god in order to allow them to, do things like inspire oracles or receive offerings and things like that. My Unfinished Sock, who's been a member for 3 months and is at the annual level, says, don't make fake Egyptian papyri. Like and share the stream instead. To be fair, Joseph Smith did not make fake papyri. He made a facsimile of a papyrus, or of papyri, in which he filled in the lacunae creatively, shall we say.
But then also don't buy real papyri.
To be fair, yeah, you shouldn't do that. But also, I mean, look, it was the middle of the 19th century. The idea of, like, ethical archaeology wasn't really, like, a thing. So I'm not going to knock him too much for doing what everyone else was doing at the time. So, but yeah, in the modern day, you should not buy real papyri. You can get facsimiles of them made, which one will be cheaper.
By Westhoff?
Maybe not by Westhoff, but maybe, I don't know. I don't know if he makes good papyrus knockoffs. But yeah, just get facsimiles, guys. Don't buy real artifacts. As Indiana Jones says, that belongs in a museum.
In its country of origin.
He's such a great role model. Indiana Jones.
He's not a great role model, but he
steals artifacts.
Yeah, he's occasionally right-ish.
He steals artifacts. And he has the nerve to say that should be in a museum. Like, my man, one of your movies opened with you stealing an artifact. What are you doing?
My favorite one is The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, where he kills a bunch of people who are actually the people living on the land that he's doing the archaeology in, which means they're the rightful owners of everything he's stealing from them, and they are trying to prevent the theft of their property from this guy, and he just kills a bunch of them.
Yeah, but he's a white guy.
Well, I mean, that is basically how the movie frames it. Is these are horrible savages with their poison blow darts and whatnot, and Indiana Jones is here trying to save the world from communism, I guess? I'm not sure about how that was supposed to work.
I thought that it was the Nazis. Isn't he always fighting Nazis?
No, this is Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, where he did in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. They switched the bad guys to the Soviet Union.
That movie was so bad, I just memory hold it.
I mean, that movie is why we replaced Jumping the Shark with Nuking the Fridge.
Yep.
So
it's true.
Because, hey, not too many...
when that trope became a thing.
Yep, not too many people have seen the episode of Happy Days where Fonzie jumps the shark. But a lot of people have seen Kingdom of the Crystal Skull where they nuke the fridge.
Yeah, nuke a fridge. Yep.
Tiktaalik Episode 3, Revenge of the Fish for 100 Argentinian pesos says, is ChatGPT environmentally friendly? No. But is it useful? Not really. But does it improve society? Also no.
Also no.
Exactly. Roshina hashtag upset Keller for $4.99 says, ChatGPT still uses far less total water than any given golf course. Oh, look, I am not a big fan of golf courses either. If it were up to me, golf would be basically restricted to, like, Western Washington State and Scotland. Like, the only places in the world where the climate is actually conducive to growing grass to that level. Especially in places like Las Vegas and Phoenix. Those things are evil. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's no...
Yeah, I was going to say, golf courses are, by their very nature, elitist. And they don't allow wide access, like, on purpose. So... yes, they in fact do use an obscene amount of water in places where they shouldn't be allowed to do that.
Also,
ChatGPT is on like everyone's phone. So
here's something that I don't get about golf, right? The entire point of golf is to play as little golf as possible. Which means, what if you just didn't play golf at all? Then you'd be the best golfer.
Perfect score. But yeah, I'm like, look, if you like golf, all right, cool. But yeah, I'm a big fan of like, hey, if you want it to be an elitist sport that's extremely gatekept, then you should have to go out of your way to play it.
What about just polo? I think that's also an elitist game because like you need a horse.
I meant elitist, like socially elitist.
I still feel like needing a horse makes it socially elitist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the case.
Well, yes, but that's an economic like thing as well. But like golf, gentlemen only, ladies forbidden. That's a thing.
And it's less also of a thing now.
Well, yes, I'm trying to say it's an elitist sport that has, by social pressure, been forced to become slightly teensy amounts less elitist.
I hear now
really
that I hear now some of the country clubs are even letting Jews in.
What?
Yeah. I've heard that. Not blacks though.
Oh well, of course.
I wouldn't know because golf is dumb.
Yeah.
So are we ready to move on yet, or
sure, go for it.
is there okay? All right.
I have enough
Remember
tangents
this,
in the
guys?
stream to qualify as a Simon Whistler channel.
Jeez. One might argue that the Greeks had little connection with the history of the judges of Israel. Yes.
Beat permits tab for $2 says, good derailing, everyone. Thank you.
But this
We
this
just
may
hate
not
Bodie's
be
books so much, man.
It's true.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But this may not be accurate at all.
Oh no.
Consider Solomon.
Okay.
He was a king whose wisdom to guide the people of God was unsurpassed. And we have a footnote to prove that.
Is this just going to be a Bible verse?
Is it the text?
No, it's just a note. It's just
Solomon's
it's literally
wisdom was not. I have to read this though now. Solomon's wisdom was not universal, but what he asked for was wisdom to guide the people of God, not necessarily wisdom in love and following God, which is where. Sorry, what does this mean?
Well, they're just mad that he's supposed to be the wisest person that ever lived, but he had like 700 wives and concubines, and they don't like that because
so that's
monogamy.
And then one of them was the Queen of Sheba. It's the Queen of Sheba thing primarily. That's what it mostly is.
That's right. Boy. Okay.
I mean, it's the 700 wives and concubines thing. It really, really is.
I mean, that's in there too.
Yeah.
But
they're very opposed to like polygamy and having multiple wives and stuff. And the alleged smartest man that ever lived that's supposed to be like, oh, the greatest leader God has provided since Moses. But he was smarter than Moses because reasons.
Because he was willing to chop a baby in half. That's why.
That's
so smart,
right?
You guys.
But he wasn't.
But I mean, this
explains.
This explains part of the evangelical impulse to support Trump, even though he's a philandering fraudster who's been convicted of multiple felonies. They're like, yeah, but Solomon had 700 wives and concubines, which we say is bad. Like, we know that's bad and stuff. Like, real bad. But God gave him wisdom to lead the country. And it's like, oh my God, shut up.
You know what? I wish there was as much outrage about, the current king of the former United States being a known rapist as there was about Bill Clinton having what by all accounts was, at least on the surface, consensual relations with someone that was not inappropriate. With an intern. Which is not appropriate. And also, don't use cigars that way. That's not safe for anyone. Don't do that. But also, that's not okay. And I don't want that to be a thing that we normalize, right? Because there's a huge power imbalance there because it's the president and whatnot.
Yeah.
But still, that's not as creepy as, I don't know, chasing a woman into a changing room and then forcefully doing those kinds of things explicitly against her will. That's a whole lot worse. And
we're just buying a pageant so that you can wander into
the changing so
the changing area.
I wish basically what I am trying to get at, I guess, is that if the moralizing of the GOP were actually consistent, that might actually be an improvement.
It's not. It's never going to be, though.
That's true.
And that's one of the things that I'm really struggling to get people to actually internalize. Yes, they're hypocrites. They know that. The hypocrisy is a power flex. You're never going to win by calling out the hypocrisy. This is not an episode of West Wing.
That doesn't mean we shouldn't do it, though, because I do think there are fence sitters who will see the hypocrisy and...
Yeah, I mean, at no point did I say don't do it, but the thing is, when you're trying to address that person or their group specifically,
you're not going to be able to shame them.
Calling it out, you're not going to do anything. They're doing it on purpose to show you that they can get away with it.
The only kind of hypocrisy I've ever seen be even close to effective at shaming right-wingers is when they're homophobes who also do a whole lot of gay stuff in the background. That can actually work well enough because it can usually get them to lose their audience. Because their audience is usually actually as homophobic as they pretend to be.
Yes. Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, but we're gonna take.
What was the story that Ron White told in his stand up where he was talking to his buddy that was super homophobic? He was like, I don't like the gays, and used a slur. He goes, oh, why do you care? That's not a big deal. And he goes, you watch adult material? And the guy's like, yeah, man, I love that stuff. You know that. And he goes, okay, well, do you only watch videos of two women? And he's like, no, I love watching a man and a woman. And he goes, oh, well, do you just only watch guys that have very small, members? And he goes, no, man, I love big, hard throbbing caho.
Oops. Oops. Hey, you know what? I don't believe that the average, homophobe is in fact, secretly gay. But it's definitely not none of them either.
Definitely not none.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to try to get to the next bolded text. We're probably going to fail.
Well,
right.
If Bodie learned how to write better.
Yeah. And I do want to say, yes, I do agree. There's in at. So, thank you for the mod team for pointing that out. And we will be back in just a few minutes. In the meantime, please enjoy the musical stylings of Beethoven, who, by the way, has a Patreon and a wish list linked in the description. Go check those out. All right, welcome back, everyone. We are back. I'm going to say real quick, hey, this channel is in fact supported almost entirely through the direct support of my viewers, whether it be through Patreon, whether it be channel memberships, super chats, gifted memberships, any of that stuff. Super thanks. All that stuff is great. So I have a Patreon, Kip has a Patreon, Vishanti has a Patreon. Feel free to check out any of those if you can afford it. You can also join the channel with the join button right below this video. We're trying to get to have another emoji, which would make a Kip emoji. So, you know, if you want to have a Kip emoji, you got to join up or gift memberships. That's the only way it's going to happen. And you got to do a lot of them, because we are still like 60-something, maybe something like that. Yeah. Roughly. That's a very, very rough estimate. So, you know, and also, at least myself and Vishanti have wish lists linked in the description or linked on the channel pages. So that's just a link to an Amazon wish list. And that's stuff that mostly just makes the brain chemicals go burr. Because I don't know if you guys know, but there are times when it can be hard to keep up with like a YouTube channel where it's a little burnout-y. And that really helps. So let's see. Aiden Matthew Gallia for €5 says, oh, this is more Maltese, isn't it? Okay. Great. I recognize the...
Not Dapper. See on the other side.
Okay. Twigibiet in Genesi... I don't know what HX is supposed to be. But I'm going to assume that that's the third-person singular pronoun. Third-person masculine singular pronoun. Like, who... Mohoza Mejta? I'm not sure. Filwarani. And so I'm going to say that that's
bag of dicks.
AIG's bag of dicks. Yeah, in Maltese. I can tell because the FIL
Okay, inventor of Maltese, just turn on your location. I just want to talk. Come outside. We ain't going to jump you.
Maltese is one of the crazier languages out there, and I never recognize it until like I see one weird little particle or something, and I'm like, wait, that reminds me of Arabic, and I'm like, oh, it's Maltese.
Oh yeah, we're writing Semitic language with the Latin alphabet. Yeah, it's fine.
I mean, okay, but like same
but we're doing it in a way that's not intuitive. Like it's not even a transliteration. It's just all
right, but same criticism except in reverse at like basically every ethnic Jewish language that's developed in Europe.
I mean...
Ladino. Oh. Stop it.
You're writing Hebrew words with weird medieval Spanish spellings.
Yeah, there's that. There's also, like, Yiddish, like Yiddish. Trying to write a Germanic language in the freaking Hebrew alphabet.
But with Hebrew letters.
Like, just stop it. Just stop.
Well, it's time to stop. We might not develop so many, regional dialects and diasporic languages if bigoted Christian countries stop kicking us out of their freaking place.
The problem isn't the different languages. You would absolutely develop different languages. That's not how... Because none of those languages developed after an exile. They developed in the places where the Jews settled before they were exiled from those places. So the expulsion is...
Wait. This is literally after the fall of the Jerusalem temple, and then like the Bar Kokhba revolt. So yes, it did actually happen.
Okay,
expulsion and dispersion, bro.
Kind of, but the thing is, like, Jews weren't broadly ejected out of the Palestinian territory after the Bar Kokhba rebellion. They were expelled from Jerusalem, which was rebuilt as Alia Capitolina, but they were still in the countryside all over the place. Like, the expulsion from Jerusalem wasn't the expulsion from the entire, Palestine province or whatever. Like, that's not what happened. And there were already Jews living in, Rome and Germania and Iberia and stuff before the Bar Kokhba rebellion. I know. So, you can't say that the Jewish communities in Ashkenaz or in, Sephardic territories were just because of the Bar Kokhba rebellion. It's not true.
I didn't say it was just because of that, but those dialects did develop after, right?
Yeah, but that's also true for the languages that they're closely related to. So, like, that would have happened regardless of the Bar Kokhba rebellion. Those people were living in places where Germanic languages and Romance languages were the dominant languages. Just like there were Jewish versions of Arabic that were going on in places like North Africa and Iberia during the period of Moorish rule. But the problem is using the wrong alphabet.
That we're talking about two different things. I'm largely arguing that diasporic local versions of a language would happen almost not at all, considering people that were basing their identity on a geographically restricted area and practice.
I would need that explained to me more.
Yiddish wouldn't become a thing if Jews were still largely concentrated in the Levant.
Well, yeah, okay, that's fair.
Because the Jewish population lived in these big-ass diasporic communities, that's why you got stuff like Yiddish and Ladino.
Right, but what I'm saying is that
Jews were still largely concentrated in Levant, you wouldn't be getting them on that scale.
But what I'm saying is that you can't blame just the fact of there being Jewish people living all over the place on any particular Christian country expelling Jews, because that's not why they lived in all those places.
I don't recall making that assertion, but perhaps
it's the assertion I heard.
That way?
It's the assertion I heard. And let's be fair, this wouldn't be the first time when everyone heard you make an assertion that you don't think you made. Like about Vancouver becoming a sunset town. Which I've had people go back and confirm.
It's not my fault, there's two.
Alright, we got a couple things. Benny Geeky Platypus Warlock for $2 says, blame the Babel engineers for their tower goals. Alright, Kip.
But also, the thing with Vancouver is because some people just didn't actually listen to what I said, and just assumed I meant something that I didn't say.
I'm just going to say, there have been comments that were definitely saying, yeah, Kip and Dapper were rightfully confused because what Vishanti said was very confusing.
Well, sometimes people hear that I'm speaking, but what I say and what they hear are two completely different things, and that is frustrating.
I agree. And I missed a TikTok super chat. Here we go. TikTok episode 3, Revenge of the Fish, says, one Argentinian politician said that he was against gay marriage because matrimony comes from Matrix. It doesn't. So the interviewer asked, so what if we call it marriage instead? And he had no answer.
Oh my gosh.
Excellent.
It's incredible.
Excellent. Also, Lieutenant Matt the Navigator just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. So, Kip, why don't you start reading while I take those 5 drinks?
We're still in this very short paragraph.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, we are. In fact, we're talking about Solomon here, the wisest man on earth. His fame spread around the world, even to distant lands where people near and far came to hear Solomon's wisdom. Yeah. Wisdom comes from God. So Solomon's discussions were surely heavily reliant upon scripture.
Bodie said, just kind of making stuff up.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't even this is not even a thing that dummies like inspiring philosophy would say, right? This is a special kind of stupid.
When you're here, you're dealing with several steps below inspiring philosophy when it comes to things like intelligence, academic rigor,
sometimes
that stuff.
It's hard to grasp how much lower that bar can go. It really, really is. But I'm moving on. Many accounts of
Maya Atkinson and I both have similar frustrations with. She says that people tell me that I mean things I don't mean all the time, and it reminded me of that post that's the guy saying, Twitter's the only place in the world where you can get in trouble for people making up stuff where you say, I like pancakes, and someone goes, so you hate waffles? No, that is a completely other sentence. What are you talking about? And I feel like a lot of that happens on the stream. I'll say something like, I like pancakes, and everyone hears, so she hates waffles. I'm like, no.
Look, I heard you say, almost word for word, there wouldn't be all these diasporic languages if Christians hadn't, or what is it? I think it was something like racist Christian countries hadn't expelled Jews. And I responded directly to that by saying,
I was
those diasporic
saying that very
languages
tongue-in-cheek.
did not... Okay, maybe
I was
maybe
saying that very
was the
tongue-in-cheek, and I think you took it way more seriously than I meant it.
I'll be honest, I took it at face value literally, and that was probably not how you intended it.
That is also something that happens very frequently when we're sending memes to each other.
Yep. So, I mean, I was responding as if that were just the claim you were making, and I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Because it doesn't. But since you were saying
and you were probably doubly
your...
confused knowing that I study medieval Spain just
I was like,
casually.
She has to know that Ladino isn't because Jews were kicked out of Iberia.
And yet, knowing all of that,
well, sometimes
like, wait.
Sometimes people have weird brain farts, right? It happens.
That's
sometimes
true.
People forget basic stuff. It happens to me all the time. It actually happened.
True.
What was it like? Just on my last stream, the stream that you joined in. It was before you got there.
Where, oh right.
I completely forgot about like the whole thing about like what Archaeopteryx's head would look like between Huxley and Richard Owen. I forgot that was even a thing. And then Doc Dino starts talking about it. I'm like, oh yeah, I do know this story. I know this story for years. I just forgot about it for no good reason. Let's see. Lieutenant Math
dumb.
They are. Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says, pro tip, don't claim a quality that you lack comes from your deity. Yeah, because I guess he just didn't bless you with it. Sorry, Bodie, you don't get the wisdom stick. Deconstructing
you know what, I just... Ambi carcinogenics? Carcinogistics. Sorry. Z says tone is hard. You know what? That is a good call out because I'm very deadpan in places where I probably shouldn't be, and that's probably a very big contribution to the taking me more seriously than I meant it. So, you know what? I'm gonna internalize that. Thank you, carcinogistics.
Look, I think the big come away here is like no one was acting like maliciously or just being stupid. We were just miscommunicating the intent, the sort of like metatextual ideas that were floating around weren't being absorbed by both sides, if you will.
I'm just gonna, I think Triceratops is right. There's a reason I try to make my sarcasm as dramatic as possible. That's probably also a good practice. Like, make it very, very obvious.
Deconstructing Laura 42, who's been a member for 1 month and is at the amulet level, says Solomon would have at most the Torah, right? Well, he wouldn't even have had that, right? Because the Torah, the Torah as we find it now entirely postdates Solomon. There are certainly parts of it that would have been known. Like the priestly blessing would have been a thing that he probably would have been in circulation in the area. There are probably some other bits and fragments of what we now find in the Torah that would have been available, but no, any historical
Almost
Solomon...
certainly not Deuteronomy. Like, there's no way. No.
Any historical Solomon would not have had anything that we would recognize as any of the books of the Bible.
Nothing even close.
Yeah. And I also don't know the degree to which we can say that there would have been any kind of historical Solomon. I don't know. I've never looked into that. No, absolutely no historical Solomon.
No, I think absolutely. I'll say it this way. I would say that the probability of an historical Solomon is like dramatically lower than for an historical David, or even an historical Saul.
Okay. I mean, I wouldn't know, so I'll accept that unless I learn otherwise.
So, and honestly, I mean, one of the reasons, or if you're interested in a little bit of why that is, you guys should go watch. It's long, but you should go watch my conversation over on Truth and Tradition about the succession narratives. But just as a, no, I won't get into it. Sorry.
All right, let's keep going here.
Okay. Many, yes, we're there. Many accounts of Samson and others were likely directly passed from the lips of Solomon and other Israelites.
Oh my goodness!
To many right? They're all there, right? They're all hanging out, just hanging out with Solomon.
I like to picture this as Solomon is just going down to like the port, like the docks, and he's just chatting with all the foreign dock workers.
Ah.
Like, hey,
no,
y'all ever hear about Samson? Let me tell you.
Other Israelites, Dapper. They're all telling this story. All of them, right? Wow. In the case of the Greeks, their natural
What? Is this like
wow?
Is this like sudden Helenophobia or something? What is happening right now?
Wow!
Those damn sinful Greeks.
That is extremely like ethnically prejudiced.
Jesus.
Just
Like,
wow.
It gets.
I'm not generally familiar with like random anti-Greek prejudice. Like, when does that happen?
Helenophobia or whatever.
I'm starting to, and I'm a little bit surprised he didn't cite this, but their natural sinful ability to embellish. They're just a bunch of fucking liars, y'all.
There's the we get our one free one.
I think that one is understandable.
Oh yeah, and it's our free one.
Yes. So they're a bunch of liars. Their natural sinful ability to embellish the account to a myth-like status quickly is not a surprise.
Okay, hold on, Bodie. So you're telling me that the story? You're okay. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, "Are we sure that Bodie isn't a Turkish nationalist?"
Yes, right?
That's it. That wins for today.
Listen,
I'm taking a drink on that one. That was great.
Listen.
That's
Here,
amazing.
I am actually genuinely a little surprised that Bodie just didn't throw in a footnote here referencing, is it the Book of Titus, where Paul just calls all the Cretes a bunch of liars. That seems like this is a missed opportunity for Bodie.
Okay, but
it really.
Here's the thing that gets me about this, right? Okay, so you have a story about a man who is granted super strength by God on the condition that his hair not be cut. And Bodie is like, can you imagine turning this into a myth-like story? Yeah, Bodie, I actually can imagine turning that into a myth-like story because it's already a myth-like story.
Okay, I just want to say thank you to the chat because y'all are on fire right now. Team ONB just said, well, he's certainly not a Turkish delight.
Oh! That reminds me. Hey, we might have the last Patriarch of Constantinople for quite a while right now. Because Turkish law says that the Patriarch of Constantinople has to be a Turkish citizen, and potential Turkish citizen.
Did they run out of those?
Well, so they haven't run out of Turkish citizens, but they've run out of what is it? Ordained bishops of Turkish citizenship of the Greek Orthodox Church. So no one who currently really qualifies as a successor, the Eastern Orthodox Patriarchate of Constantinople, exists. So yeah, Patriarch Bartholomew might be it for a little while.
I'll do it.
Yeah. Wow. So because bit of a. Oh, it's also possible that they'll just relax the rule. But also, I want to say, hey, shout out to Patriarch Bartholomew for doing a lot of work in trying to spread concern for the environment among Christians, because that's one of his big things that he does. He's written a lot of stuff about ecology and conservation, and how the creation narratives call on humans to be stewards of creation and not just rapers and pillagers of creation, and that stewardship involves protection and care. And so he's trying to use that aspect of, Genesis to try to encourage Christians to care more for the environment. So, hey, big props on that, because that is a thing that Christians are often iffy on, I'll say. And he's like, no, you need to take better care of the environment.
Props,
and, hey.
Props where it's due, massive respect for that. And also, any tradition that encourages cats to just be in their places of worship, I have good feelings.
Yeah, cats are basically the only non-humans that are like intentionally allowed in Orthodox churches. I mean, obviously you're going to find bugs and whatnot in there because, like, how would you not? But yeah, cats are encouraged to be in Orthodox churches, and I've met more than a couple church cats whose favorite place during liturgies is the bishop throne, where they just sit and relax and watch the congregation from the bishop's throne. Because, I mean, where else would a cat sit?
They know that
the
it's their divine right.
Exactly.
Yes, it is.
No one would challenge them.
So, church cats are fun, as long as you're not allergic. Deconstructing Laura for $9.99 says, Kip, I know this is not always I know this is not today's topic, and I don't want to hijack the stream. Come on.
Really?
I mean, look,
Really?
we've already passed that point.
I really want to know your thoughts / knowledge on the Book of Job. Please let me know where I can find your thoughts. Thanks. Oh yeah, where can we find your thoughts on Job?
There's we did the very first time I was on your channel. Was all about the identity of Behemoth in
yes, it
Job
was
chapter 48. I think I want to say
40 something.
Or is that
for sure.
too many? 40 something. There's a bunch of chapters in Job.
It's true.
My thoughts. I mean I have some other thoughts on the Book of Job as well. I have outlined a few of these, although some of those are no longer available on my channel. I talk a little bit about it in my course. I write a good amount about it in my forthcoming book, which I might actually finish today.
Wow.
But it's around just to just to give you a few things here. Job is fun for a lot of reasons, because it's some of the most, I would say, philosophically and poetically dense stuff in the entire collection of Hebrew literature.
And was Job Chinese?
No.
Okay.
No, he was not. And
even though he lived in the East?
Job, he lived East.
Well, that sounds like China to
and
me.
Job was not also not the first book of the Bible ever written. It wasn't that.
I don't know. Were you there?
And it's not. He wasn't a real guy, right? There's that.
God.
And
why do you hate the Bible so much?
I just hate it. I do. You know me. I have a shirt and everything. All right.
Let's see.
So, but yeah, there's some places you can go.
Nice. TikTok episode 3, Revenge of the Fish, for 100 Argentine pesos says there was a real person named Hercules found in Greek genealogies.
Yeah, there was.
Team ONB Formula 1 dog racing for $2 says Ghidorah. This is entirely unbiblical, guys.
There it is. Yes, it is.
Dutch Mammoths never saw Snow Tunicate for $5 says, my main professor in college pointed out that many major religions suggest that humans are supposed to care for the earth. Also, Vish made me say cat. Nice. And yeah, the thing is, it's not hard if you want to find it, to find good theological reasons in multiple religions to take better care of the environment. It's really not that hard. But there are people whose financial interest is in not having that be popular. So, it's not. Cognitive Trifurcation, member for 12 months, says, honestly, I would 100% buy it if we humans got the Imago Dei, but cats got Anima Dei.
Amazing.
Fair. Meat Permits Tad for $5 says, I need to buy some cucumbers and feta for my naturally sinful salad. Make sure you get some plain yogurt in there, too. Alright, Kip, go ahead. Let's get a little bit more of this in here. Maybe we can finish the section.
Okay. Oh God. It's I'm sorry. It's okay. Furthermore, there was a real person named Hercules found in Greek genealogies, who was a Greek king ruling over Lydians in Asia Minor. His wife's name was Dejanira. He died 11 years before the fall of Troy, which was during the time of the judges. This was during the heroic age of the Greeks, when the last few people who were seen as gods were still living.
So we're still linking back to that. Great.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So this transference was applied to an ancestor who was elevated to a god-like status.
That's a cool story, Bodie. Do you have any actual evidence to back this up? Because, look, here, the thing is, look, you can make these ideas in historiography, right? You can say, like, maybe this and this and this. But if you don't have any evidence to back it up, then there's no reason for anyone to take it seriously. You need to have evidence in history. And while I will say that I don't think history is a part of science, I think it uses different techniques, it is still a rigorous data-driven field. And if you don't have the data, then you don't have an argument.
We try.
Yeah, so like, Bodie, this is a fine idea about what to investigate in ancient history, right? That sounds like a cool thing to look into. Have you done that? Because it doesn't seem like you've done that. Because right now it just sounds like you're spitballing cool ideas, which, yeah, I'll admit, it would be cool if you could make a connection between stories from Samson, from Canaan, to then being later conflated with an actual historical king named Hercules. It's not going to be Hercules because it's Greek, who then became the basis for Hercules legends. That would be a really cool historical connection. But you need to do more than just say, well, it kind of makes sense to me. Because that's how you start, it's not how you end. You need to get us from here to there. It can't just be your cool idea.
I mean, this is the hallmark of pseudoscience, pseudo-historians, all those guys.
Oh, yeah.
It's just vibes-based. Like, seems like it works out, and then you just stop
vibes.
thinking.
Some researchers suggest,
Very
is it
true.
possible for a historical king named Hercules to have existed, only to then be later elevated to demigod status and having the deeds of an earlier legendary character named Samson accreted onto him? Some researchers think it is true. Okay, cool. That doesn't make any of it true. And the thing is, that's not a crazy idea, right? Like, this is not completely implausible. But you gotta get us there, Bodie. Alright, sorry, keep going.
Also, no, I'm sorry, but like, I would assume that, like, the last few people who were seen as gods were still living. Like, I would assume that, but maybe I'm overthinking this. I would assume that Bodie at least recognizes that the Roman imperial cult was a thing.
I'm actually not positive that he does. Because you gotta remember that for a Christian to become acutely aware of that fact, they have to go beyond the history of Acts, right? They need to know the actual wider context. But he doesn't.
This deep.
But he doesn't.
Deep. It's not.
Bodie doesn't
it's
do
barely
that. This is the man who thought that Tuvalu was probably peopled by the descendants of Tubal because the names kind of sound alike. You got to remember, that's who we're talking about here.
All right. Yeah, true. So, and this is
vibes.
Yeah, and this is me just after watching a stream about cannabis in the Bible. So,
yeah, you know, if I had this experience, that psychic damage, you did too.
The thing is,
because sometimes you send us stuff by like Christian Apologist or IP or David Falk or something, and it's like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna just serve that right back to you.
This is fair.
Also, to be fair, while I don't agree with the arguments about cannabis in the Bible, I wish they were true because that would be cool.
Same. It would be a lot cooler if it was.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
John Hopkins for $5 says, not much to comment, just wanted to push for the goal. Thank you. Yes, we are only 8 super chats away from the goal of us just having like a food and drink stream where we just come on and we talk about ideas for food and drink.
I really want this to happen, guys. So
I'm with Zumi on this one. Emotional damage.
Roshna hashtag Upside Keller for $4.99 says, Bodie thinks Tuvix had kids. Oh, Tuvix. You know what? Rest in peace, Tuvix.
My God.
You were gone far too early.
Yeah.
You were murdered by Captain Janeway. Yeah, it was. He's like, I want to live. Does no one see how this is wrong? And they're just like marching him off to his execution chamber. Like, goddamn.
Ugh.
That's rough.
So many people were like, nah, man, you really need to give Voyager a chance, and you need to talk about, like, how awesome these characters are, and that episode happened. I'm like, you know what? I think I'm good here, because that was done uncritically. I'm not comfortable.
Yeah. To be fair, they do bring up that later in Lower Decks, and they were like, wait, so Janeway just murdered this guy? I was like,
I'm like, look, that's
yeah.
30 years later. We gotta have a conversation. You can't wait that long. Man, this is Star Trek.
Outside the show, that conversation was going on.
Hmm.
And you gotta remember that, like, you couldn't really have much of that conversation at Enterprise, because none of that happened yet. And so, really, the first show to be referential enough to really reference Voyager directly, outside of just, like, a cameo from Admiral Janeway, was probably Lower Decks. So, in terms of in-canon discussion of the topic, that might actually be one of the earliest opportunities we realistically had to discuss it. And it was in the context of other people being Tuvixed and not wanting to die, and realizing that what Janeway did was murder the first Tuvix guy. And they were like, oh, well, this is bad. Anyway, Kip, you should continue, because I want to get through this section.
Yeah, let's do this. So this transference was applied to an ancestor that was elevated to a godlike status. Confucius was a well-known person of antiquity who was later elevated to a god. What did this actually happen? Is this a thing? Like, I admittedly don't know a lot about. Okay,
a part of the problem is that, like, I don't want to paint with a gigantically broad brush, right? But as a result of Chinese hegemony over large swaths of East Asia, you can talk about, like, East Asian ideas as, you know, stemming out of, like, Chinese ideas in many cases. So there is a sense in which you can say that there are commonalities between East Asian cultures as a result of, like, Han Chinese hegemony. And one of the things about this, though, is that the concept of deity in East Asia does not map very well onto, say, European or Near Eastern concepts of deity. And so, Confucius is revered as part of what Bodhi would classify as ancestor worship, but he's not seen as, like, you know, a creator god or someone who's going to be performing lots and lots of miracles. But that doesn't mean people aren't going to burn incense in temples in front of images of Confucius, because they will. But that is not the same thing.
But that's not the thing. It's not right. Yeah, and this is, and I've just got to say this, because even within the modern understanding of, like, ancient Near Eastern cultures or even ancient Jewish cultures, because I encountered this recently. There was this debate between David Wood and Alex O'Connor about whether or not Jesus claimed to be God. And there's been a bunch of content that's been generated on YouTube as a result of this, because stupid evangelical Christian apologists don't understand how the concept of deity worked in the ancient world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating.
Well, the thing is,
I'm done.
we think, as modern sophisticates, that what we think of as God is what God means for all times and all places and all peoples.
All
but
times,
not.
All places. Yep.
Concepts that we translate as deity concepts into English do not always map on well. Just like all other concepts, right? One of the problems with translation. The collection of meanings that a word can take on from one language to another do not generally correspond one-to-one. And in cases where even the underlying idea is culturally dependent, like deities are, it can be even more confusing. We got a few super chats here. Let's see. Team O&P Formula 1 Dog Racing for $2 says, justice for Tuvix. Agreed. And look, I'm not saying we should, like, recreate Tuvix by rejoining Tuvok and Neelix. I think now that they're back, it wasn't their choice to have Tuvix murdered. And I think it's fair to say that their personal autonomy allows them to not be recombined. But still, I think that it was murdered, what Janeway did to Tuvix, and she needs to face some consequences. Dictolic Episode 3, Revenge of the Fish for 100 Argentinian pesos says, weird to say Jupiter was originally a human, since it'd be very easy to claim that the Indo-European Skyfather is the same as the Abrahamic god, which is actually a pretty good point. There are a lot of similarities between very early Proto-Indo-European mythology and early, like, Mesopotamian and Canaanite mythology about things like the Chaos Kampf and things like this.
You know who did a whole video about Proto-Indo-European, like the Yupater kind of like core word referring to a father type deity that is sky-based? Religion for Breakfast.
Yeah.
Did a great video on that, and
Honestly,
I highly recommend it.
If you're not watching Religion for Breakfast, I don't know what you're doing. You should definitely be watching
Right,
that guy.
what are you doing?
Renee, Heat Problem Reborn for $2 says, contributing to the food and drink stream, thank you. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, did you know that Confucius was a 6th century Chinese philosopher? No, I didn't. No, I had no clue. Demon Trigger for $5 says, does Bodie think that Jupiter is also a Greek god rather than Zeus? He might.
I hope
Bodie,
not.
I mean, Bodie doesn't know that there's a difference between Heracles and Hercules. He said that there was a Hercules in an
It's
ancient
true.
Greek genealogy.
That's true.
There wasn't. There was a Heracles. So, all right, keep going, Kip. What do we got here?
All right. Oh God, where the hell was I? Okay. Many of their names as accounts, many of their names as accounts can be found in genealogies of kings and other prominent peoples.
That's a sentence that doesn't make much sense.
Many of their names as accounts.
Yeah, that doesn't.
I have no idea what that means. I just don't.
Just ignore these two words, and it suddenly makes sense as a sentence. Many of their names can be found in genealogies of kings and other prominent peoples.
Right? Yeah.
Just leave it there. It's fine.
God, jeez. Okay, fine. In many cases, these names were reused of other peoples down through the ages, like Hercules.
I mean, that is true. People have been named Hercules.
Yep, it's true.
So we'll take a drink for it being true.
The
Good
name
job, Bodie.
Jupiter was often applied to a ruler. But this should be a taste of how deification was applied as people began walking away from the creator god. A taste.
Bodie, there is no reason to think that belief in some monotheistic, identifiably Abrahamic god was the primitive condition for all peoples, which then later degenerated into polytheism, nor is there a historical case to be made that so-called polytheistic religions tend towards monotheism over time. Both of those models are outdated, and there is good evidence against both of them. That's just not how religious history works. Plus, the idea of religion as a thing is mostly the invention of racist European Protestants.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that too. Religion isn't really a real category very much.
No. Mm-mm.
You know, I'm having trouble thinking about a more cursed, century than the 19th century.
Yeah,
because the ramifications on the sciences, on philosophy, on religious studies, colonization, nation states, just all this stuff. I'm sitting here going,
the economy.
The 19th century really just did it to them. And we're still feeling it.
The thing is, it's also a very complex time, because it's also a time when a lot of the technology that is the reason that people are alive today, by and large, was also invented. Like, if it weren't for advancements in things like medicine and farming that happened in the 19th century, the world population would probably still be like 1 billion or so max. Like, almost everyone here would be dead, or just have never been born. So it's a very complex time, and yeah, a lot of shit came out of it that's horrible. On the other hand, it's literally the only reason most people here exist. So,
I was going to say that the Industrial Revolution, in tandem with, I guess, more global communication, it's like, hey, that should be a good thing, right? Is being able to mass produce food and do all these other things that make humans' life easier and stuff like that. That should be a good thing. But then the mass proliferation of ideas should be also a good thing, and yet they're proliferating the worst ones.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, Kip, I'm gonna start a poll here because I think we might actually hit this. So, Kip, can you read a little bit more while I make a poll real quick?
Yeah. All right. Sorry, I lost my window. There we go. All right. Yeah. They began elevating others, like their ancestors who did something great or outlived everyone, to a distinguished status, that of an immortal or a god, y'all. So. All right.
Yeah.
They are
Deconstructing
not
Laura
gods.
was like, Fish, are you not living in 21st century America? I mean, I would much rather be living in 21st century America than 19th century anywhere.
Yeah, generally.
Period.
Hashtag upset
Sanitation alone.
Roshna hashtag upset Keller for $4.99 says, this is still Bodhi's ancestor worship chapter, right? Yes, it is.
I think it is.
I actually forgot. I really did. So, I mean, I guess good for you, Bodhi, for keeping the
theme.
Keeping the theme. I don't know what it says that I lost the plot in this, but all right. They are not gods at all, but merely men, mortals who also died in the need of the Savior Jesus Christ. Or hear me out, or they were fiction.
Yeah. Also,
impossible.
Is it really necessary to preach about the need for Jesus in a book aimed at a Christian audience? Like, do we need that? I mean,
you're just trying to reinforce the audience's beliefs.
Are
so
you sure?
I guess.
That in there.
Yeah,
okay,
I guess.
Listen. As someone who grew up in a culture where I experienced the ongoing dread, I suppose, about not even just not even being entirely sure all the time that I was, in the right camp, that I was saved, that I had done enough, that there was. I kind of get this, right? I kind of get that for a lot of people, there exists this ongoing existential angst that maybe it's just not enough, and he's probably thinking this, right? You need these constant reminders just to make sure that you've done enough, you've gone to enough services, you've gone to the altar at the front of the church while the super emotional music is playing enough. You've rededicated your life enough.
I almost forgot those existed until you just mentioned them, Kith.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know a lot of you guys have blocked that shit out, and I'm sorry for
that's all right. And
doing that. But
actually, it's one of the things that I've talked about that I don't hear talked about a lot, but that after I talked about it, people came forward to point out that it was good that I talked about it, was the range form of religious trauma that you can get from belonging since childhood to a form of Christianity that really encourages you to have a conversion story where you had your come to Jesus moment. And that needs to be part of your witness or whatever. And for people who grew up in
when
those
you
religions,
were raised in it,
right? You generally never had one of those, and so there's always this concern in the back of your brain is like, well, if I didn't have a conversion moment, how do I know that I'm actually a part of this religion the way that I'm supposed to be?
That is one of the main reasons that you hear so many of these evangelical guys go, I was an atheist and I hated God. It's like, you can't be both an atheist and hate God. Like, that's not.
I mean,
that doesn't track.
You can hate a character that's fictional, I think. Like, you can hate a fictional bad guy.
The way that they mean it, you and I both know the way that they mean it. Yeah. Because, like Kip was saying, the way that these books are written and what Bodie's doing, when he's like, oh, well, all these other people had gods, but we have to delegitimize them because, we know that our religion's the one true one, so you just fold them into yours. So it's like, oh, well, they're not gods, they're just demons. They're just fake men. They're just mortals. They're just... It's like, because if people start learning about all the other cultural diversity out there, they might get the wackadoo idea that Christianity is one among many such traditions.
And Jillian...
so you have to tell them, like, oh no, those are just fake. They're not really God. They're just people here.
Jillian Channel Social Security Ren says, man, Protestants are weird. And the thing is, in many cases, they are. I'm not going to say other groups of Christians aren't weird, right? Like...
Evangelicals, not all Protestants.
I think...
Well, there's that too, yeah. But I mean, also, it's not weird that there's an entire state in Greece where women aren't allowed because it's full of men's monasteries. Like, that's not also not weird. That is also weird.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are a number of Christian saints who are famous for making friends with animals, like Disney princess style, including bears. Like, that's also weird. Like, there's
Was
a lot
that person
of
Russian?
Yeah, there is in fact a prominent Russian saint who is most famous for befriending
How
bears.
did I know? How did I know? The
It's
only
Russia.
people on the planet that can befriend bears.
Yeah.
Russians.
But like, also it's weird that, like, you know, the Catholic Church was recently like magnanimously donating the head of one of the apostles to like the See of Constantinople as like a olive branch towards like the Christian East. Like, that's all of that is weird, right? So I don't want to pretend that other groups of Christians aren't weird, but yeah, there are some particularly weird things that go on in evangelical Protestant circles that are like not just weird, but also traumatic for those involved. Because I don't think anyone has trauma over transferring a skull from Rome to Istanbul. Like, I think everyone's fine. I don't think anyone really is in trouble.
I'm with Zumi on this, but if not friend, why friend-shaped? Me to every feline ever.
My favorite was a story.
Big-ass snow leopards with their floofy toes. Friend.
To be fair,
gigantic 600-pound tiger doing chuffing. Friend.
I was gonna say, to be fair, snow leopards are probably not going to attack you. They're not that big. They're pretty scary.
They're really not.
Now that doesn't make them safe, and you shouldn't go poke them or anything. But all right, let's see. Roshina #UpsetKeller for $4.99 says, "You only need 2 more Baja Blast flavored super chats for they talk about."
But
Okay,
listen,
I gotta reset.
Matt the Navigator's super chat is the wrong color.
It is.
I mean, maybe we could just combine them, like total all of the blue ones up.
We
Well,
only
we're
need
not done
2
yet. We still have a few minutes, but
We only
guys,
need 2 more Baja Blast flavored
come
super
on.
chats before they talk about Baja Blast for a stream. Now it's only 1 more. John Hopkins for $5 says, "Cooking stream!" And then Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $2 says, "Saint Snow White." Yeah, basically.
Basically.
Saint Francis of Assisi is a famous Catholic version of that, where he's the patron saint of animals, and according to the legends about him, he would just go preach Christianity to the birds, which is weird because I don't think birds need Jesus, even in Catholic theology. But that's also why he's usually depicted with birds, because he had a reputation for going out and preaching to the birds. Kip, take us home.
Well,
we only got a little bit more time.
All right. Entire books could be written on the connection of ancient immortals, gods, and deities around the globe and how they connect to real people or even God, but have simply been embellished by the dirty Greeks, or in the case of the true God, demoted over time in their story. So he's saying that in this last clause here, he's saying that like Yahweh's been demoted in other story. Where? Like,
so
what?
he's doing things like claiming that figures like high gods in other pantheons are being demoted as a result of being associated, or basically
I see. So
basically what he's saying is,
I
guess the quickest way I could put this is like switch to Islamic terms. He's like, because of all the shirk of those Greeks, they've demoted Allah. And it's like, okay, Bodhi, sure, I guess. Those damn mushrikun.
And now we have a listing of a few so-called
no.
This made me so mad because you can tell where his like sounds like stuff broke down immediately. It's on line 1. He thought Neptune and Nephtune were the same. He just thought that that's what they sounded like.
Also,
But then he went, well, but the Greek name, he knows it's Poseidon, but he can't make that work. So then he just leaves the other 2 blank because, of course, he doesn't know anything about their
Roshna
pantheons.
#UpsetKeller for $4.99 sent a super sticker which looks like a dancing pear. And while for some reason, apparently super stickers don't count, I'm counting it.
What?
I'm counting it.
I know it's supposed to be a pear, but I always see an avocado.
I mean,
always.
Also fair.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You know what pears I really like? Are those gigantic Asian pears? They're like golden and they're like just round. They're not pear-shaped really.
Those are,
oh, man.
Those are really good.
Yeah.
Also, most of the avocados I buy are round. Like they're more round. But that does remind me of an avocado. So
Yvonne, Eupater, Yov Pater, or Yov Father, and then the Greek name Father Jove.
Really? Wow.
This is so bad. Does he not know that Jupiter's Greek equivalent was Zeus?
No, he apparently does not.
Does he just not know that?
No, he got that wrong. I'm taking a drink for it too. Come on.
Father Jove. Everyone in the chat's losing their mind right now.
Yeah. And anticipating incredulity, Gladstone for $10 says, "I'm late to the party, but a cooking stream sounds like fun. Here's my donation to the food fund. Also, AIG is a bag of Rocky Mountain oyster sticks." I'll take a drink for that. All right, TikTok. First, John Hopkins says $5 to account for Super Sticker. Thank you very much. And then TikTok episode 3, Revenge of the Fish, for 100 Argentinian pesos, says Greek Joe Father instead of Zeupater.
Zeupater.
Zeupater. Yeah, it's...
Wow.
I'm going to end this poll here. We have
I'm never going to get
votes.
over this. Father Jove. I'm just...
So,
wow.
We had 51 votes, of which 54% said normal Dapper reacts time, and 45% of which said a different time and day. So, what it looks like is that of those of you who care, which doesn't have to be everyone, that's fine, the majority would prefer that it be on a Saturday at our normal time. So, what we will do is, I don't know if it'll be next week, but we will set up...
apparently around noon, so...
Yep.
But anyways.
So, what we'll do is we will come up with a good time for that. Okay, so Kip, are you doing anything next week holiday-wise that would interfere?
So, I won't be here next weekend because we are having a federal election.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
I am spending my Easter at a poll station. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, you know what? I am sure that the resurrected Jesus would say, "Go vote." So,
yeah, I did already, by the way.
I have no idea if that's actually what a resurrected Jesus would do. I don't even know how to assess that, but I'm going to go with it anyway.
Sure.
Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, "Father Jove had many sons." And Todd Ferguson, Supplement Supervisor, is correct. Avocados come from the Nahuatl word for testicles.
That is true. Yeah.
Wow. That's fun.
Your own pears on tree. They're also actually fairly good for ovarian health. So if you eat avocados, they will help out a little bit.
They'll improve my ovarian health.
Ovaries. Yeah, if you have ovaries.
Fun nerd thing.
All right. Anyway.
The weirdest sound in Klingon is actually taken from Nahuatl by Mark Okrand, who spent his professional career studying Central and South American native languages. So that actually explains about 70% of the weirdness of Klingon is actually just like, well, if you're familiar with South and Central American Native American languages, then you'll actually get why this is actually not weird at all. Okay, sure.
Yeah, Klingon, like the way that it was written and sounded out, it was always very baffling to me until I started learning Nahuatl, and I was like, oh wait, no, this makes sense now.
Yeah, you can see that's what that guy's specialty was Central and South American Native languages, because it's all over the language.
Cognitive trifurcation says, so is Vish saying that ovaries need testicles to be healthy? Sounds kind of heteronormative if you ask me. Actually, no, I was going to say...
It did sound
ingesting avocado to promote ovarian health could actually be read as a transportive statement, so, hey. Sure. Like when you take hormones...
Yeah, I get
it's just natural.
I don't think that's how it works, but like, sure, whatever.
Listen, if Bodie can just ass pull things because they just are vibes based, why not this?
I love that this one, Dumber 9, there isn't even actually a linguistic connection.
Nothing at all.
There's not even the auditory pareidolia.
I want to know how... No, scroll up. There you go. I want to know what particular pattern of neurons in his brain led him to the conclusion of Ashkenaz parentheses Twisto.
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah.
How did he get there?
Not a clue.
Yeah,
Is
I
it
was
just
looking at
because
that
that's
too.
where Ashkenaz is said to have dispersed to, and that became a population of like Germanic dwelling Jews? Is that why he thinks this?
It could be that. That
And if
honestly
so,
could be
why
it.
is he connecting it to Mercury and Hermes?
I have no idea.
Like,
Lieutenant Matt the
Bodie.
Navigator for $5 says,
He
I
did-
mean,
did-
the Klingons would probably get along pretty well with the Aztecs. They might, yeah. I could see that. All right, but here, it is time to wrap up because
He talked about this in another chapter, though, didn't he? The connection between Ashkenaz and
He did.
and Twisto. It was like one of those super boring chapters.
Yep, we
I
mostly
must have
skipped it.
memory hold that as well.
Yeah,
We also mostly
think
skipped it.
Yeah.
But hey, it is time to get out of here. So Kip, you've got. I'm gonna actually start a timer. You're gonna have 45 seconds to
Oh,
tell
come
people
on!
what's coming up.
What? Didn't I get a minute last time? I thought
Yeah.
I got a minute.
That was last time. This is this time. We're later.
Yeah, but tariffs.
Sometimes.
Yeah,
I
that's the
hate
tariff.
being here. So.
It's. I mean, give me a second. I'm gonna go live. We're gonna say goodbye, and then I'm just gonna be out of here.
Okay. All right. Okay. I think I need to say my thing again.
All right,
because,
hold on.
Because people
Hold on.
people said that
we're already very late. Kip, you got stuff.
I know.
Everyone should go check out Kip's channel. Everyone should go check out
You always
Vish's
call me
channel.
Chip. That was cute.
That
Yeah.
was sorry. Look,
Whoops.
what happened was we had about a tenth of a second of power outage, which my surge protector is fine with, but the router is not fine with. So my computer stayed on,
Hmm.
but the oven went out, the internet went out, the microwaves need to be reset for the timer. All my set is a little bit messed up because it turned off my monitors, because while the computer stays up, the monitors are actually not attached to the same surge protector because I don't care as much about them, quite frankly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, Chuck V for $10 says, allow me, the American consumer, to pay Dr. Kip's tariff. So there you go.
Yep.
Thank you.
It's
I am
true.
sorry.
Chuck's always looking out for me.
I don't think it'll happen again, so feel free to head over to the Discord server where we're going to watch the 2017 Power Rangers movie where they race swap some of the characters so that the Black Ranger isn't black and the Yellow Ranger isn't Asian. So, there's
Did
that.
people hear
Progress.
me talking about Justin Sledge
No, but Justin Sledge,
and
there
Esoterica?
was the interview. So say that real quick, and then we're going to get out of here.
Yes. I will be on Esoterica this week, I believe. I have a birthday stream the following week, the next week, and the week after that, Dr. Justin Sledge is going to be on my channel.
Awesome.
And he's flying to Vancouver this summer, and we're going to hang out.
That's if they let him
Bring
through
me
the
up there. I
border.
want to drink absinthe with y'all.
Yes.
All right. Bye,
Yes.
everybody. Thank
So-
you so much. We will talk to all of you later. And like I said, hey, hang out. We're going to watch some Power Rangers if you want. It's going to be fun. It's not look, the movie is underrated. It's not amazing, but it is underrated. So hang out with us. All right. Bye, everybody.
Not Vancouver, Washington, by the way.
Yeah. Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Van Tovend, Ferrevara, Tapioca Weasel, Whispers, Max Cherry, North Texas Fossils, John Ackerman, Strawberry Vein, Dr. Tapioca Weasel, Elleron Teller, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostek von Mennen, Landon Knoll, Mabbity Babbity, Sphincter of Doom, and Volus. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.